Hello, this is Dead Hamster, and we're going to go ahead and continue with part 2 of the video here for building a custom course in Mario Kart 64. So I have my 3D model, which is, just a moment, built with a fair topology here. The UV mapping should already be done. All the materials should be condensed. There should be no duplicate materials. Every material needs a bitmap assigned to it. You can see I don't have any excessively large triangles either. I've broken up several parts of the geometry to make it easier for the game to handle the coordinate sizes for the UVs, the UV coordinates. So what we're going to do now is set up the splitting of the course into the sections and making the display lists. So the way that this game works is that the course is split again into sections. So when driving on any of these polygons, for example, the player may be in section 1. We're going to set all this up and decide and make those decisions. So this would be section 1, we'll say. And when driving in section 1, there are 4 possible views. You can either be facing north, east, south, or west, depending on which section that you're in and which view you're facing. A display list will be called. A display list is a piece of code that runs on N64 for rendering 3D objects and handling other things for 3D rendering. So a display list is going to call a list of objects, 3D objects, and denote which ones need to be drawn in the scene. So for each section view, again, you're going to have a list of objects that the character would be able to see, and those objects are going to be drawn each frame that the character is in that section facing that view. So what we need to do is to take our 3D level, to break it up into objects, into small pieces that can then be, so for example, this may be an object here, these faces, and when the player is able to view these objects based on the section that they're in and the view that they're in, we have to make a list of all of those objects and then render those while the character is in that area. So to set up that that data, it's difficult to visualize it without having a 3D representation of what the views would actually be. So we're going to use 3ds Max for that, and the Max plugin that we have here. So for this course, I figured 6 sections is going to be what we will need. Now, generally, you want a section view to be no more than about 900 to 1,000 faces. It seems that the N64 can handle around 1,400 or 1,500 faces before it experiences a bit of slowdown. And when you have multiplayer, that's per character. It renders each character as a separate window. So if you have a multiplayer situation with a very dense level, you're going to have a lot of slowdown and a lot of lag that you'll need to compensate for with a course multiplier that increases the speed of the physics, but that makes the game a bit choppier and not as good to play. So you definitely want to optimize and cut down the number of triangles in each section view. One good way to do that is to use a large number of sections. So if I did, for example, 12 in here and had each of these small areas be a section, I could really get fine control and really decide which objects are going to be able to be viewed from certain areas. Also, when designing the course, it's good to pick a design around a large object, such as this fence wall, for example. It's good to have something that occludes the rest of the level that the player is not able to see. If there's some type of large object or a hill or something else that can block the player's view, you don't need to render the objects behind that hill, and you're able to save a lot of polygons. So you definitely want to take advantage of vertical objects to block views and to occlude the player's view space. For this course, only being 486 triangles, I could truthfully make this one section, and I would be able to render the entire course for 4 players without any issues. There might be a small bit of slowdown, but it would be negligible. Even because, again, normally a section view for Mario Kart 64 is about 800 polygons. In 4-player, it's able to handle that, so I guess really it's more about 3,000 polygons that it's able to do, but some of the stock courses still have a multiplier of some kind on 4-player mode, so it's really probably around 2,000, 2,500, but I'm getting into semantics, it doesn't matter. You want to keep it down. You want to keep it to about 800 to 1,000, and 486 is well below that. I'm still going to split the course into multiple sections just to demonstrate and to go through the tutorial, but for a course this small, really you wouldn't even necessarily need to. Again, I'm going to choose 6. We're going to do 5 around the length of the course, and then there will be a 6th for this area here, which is going to be out of bounds. If the racer decides to go and drive over into this area, Lakitu will pick them up and drop them back into the course. So what I'm going to be doing for the next few minutes is going through and picking out each individual area for the course and detaching it as a clone. It's very important to detach as a clone, and then placing it into the hierarchy that is about to be created here. So you can see all these sections. Each one has nodes for north, east, south, west, and surface. So we're first going to create the surface map, and from there we will create the master objects. After we create all the course objects, we can make lists of which objects will be viewed in which section and what view. Now the program is going to be able to do a very bare bones, extremely low quality calculation of what objects can be viewable. It's just if the coordinates are, if this vert is further east of this vert, then it adds it. If this vert is further west, then it doesn't, etc., etc. It is very low quality. So you'll need to go through afterwards and trim a lot of extra objects out of the section views. But it's at least gives you a starting point, and trimming and deleting objects is much quicker than adding them in. So we'll get to that in a moment or so. First, we're going to split the course up into sections after we prep everything. So let me grab the course itself. Needs to be named Master Course. You're going to be making a lot of duplicates of this object. You don't really want to edit this one. This one should be the original master file all in one object so that you could reference it later on. We need to hit prep course model, save always, of course. And what that's going to do is tweak the vert positions ever so slightly to make sure that they're at whole integer values, which is how Mario Kart stores the positions of their verts. So it'll shift them and tweak them and move them around ever so slightly, rounding off the extra decimal places to give them a whole number value. We should probably take another look through at this point and just make sure that everything looks good, and see if there are any errors that were introduced during this step. But most likely it's because of how small the shift is, everything should be fine. Save again, and we're going to go ahead and start splitting things up. Now with the surface objects, we do not need to grab everything. Only what the player can collide with. So that should be good. So we want to hit detach as clone, and we're going to, no, we don't actually need to name it anything yet. Just drop it into section 1 surface, and let's move on to section 2 now. So back to the master course object, and now we're looking for this here and forward. And we're actually only going to do this for section 2. And I'll explain, because if I include all of this, then I have to include all of this as well. And I might be able to get away with some of, we'll get into that later. Alright, sorry, dazing off a bit there. Section 3 here. Yeah, and then section 4 will be the next. That's fine. Just wanted to clean this up a bit. Coming around this corner, there we go. So section 4 does not have a surface. Section 3 ends right there. So here we want to close. Now we have a nice clean cut instead of having to have those extra triangles kind of floating all over. And finally bring it back home to 5. Section 1 does not include, so we need to have all of this. And then double check that section 1 has the pillar on the other side there. Yep, that should be good. All right. Nope, so I do have to include, it looks like, pop here. We're just going to detach this right here as a clone and attach it like this. There we go. So now if I turn this off, master course, you can see just the surface map objects. And we do have a complete course with walls. Wonderful. So again, we do have this other area here though. It's out of bounds that we need to take care of. So we'll go click on these faces as well. We won't need the sign, nor do I really need to grab the door. Don't need the windows. As soon as they go out of bounds, Lakitu is going to grab them, and they're going to be put back onto the starting line over here, or the racing course over there. So we just need to do enough to keep them in bounds and from falling through to the abyss. I don't even need to get the back of these, but I'm going to. It's just a few faces. And that should be enough right like that. So again, they're going to come in, they're going to hit something in this red area, and then Lakitu is going to throw them back onto the starting line. So even if they tried to abuse the Lakitu glitch and get back out of bounds, they wouldn't have enough time to get anywhere to do anything. The best thing that they might be able to do is fall to the bottom and get brought back anyway. So not too concerned about it. Just going to detach it and put it in section 6. Oh, no, wait, stop that. That's backwards, okay. So save that. Alright, now we have to actually split the materials. So Kart draws each object based by its material. You're going to have to split each of those up, and there's a button for that as well, of course. So we're going to see if it works. Oh, would you look at that? And it names them after the material ID. which is important for Overcart. It uses that. We're actually going to have to rename the sections to be based on their surface ID. But regardless, we're going to go through and select all these objects except for these and the master course, which we never want to edit. Again, we want to leave that as stock. So what we have selected are all the surface clones that we've just made. And now we're going to split their materials. And you'll notice that it keeps them inside the original parent objects, names them after the material ID. Again, the Mac script here is required for Overcart and for making custom courses right now for Mario Kart 64. These can all be easily replicated with Blender Python scripts. I just don't know enough about Blender or Python to write them myself. I use 3ds Max personally, so that's the toolkit that I'm basing this all around. So again, all of this could easily be replicated with Blender. It's just going to have to be someone else to write that stuff out. So with our surface objects split up now, we can take the master course. We're going to clone that. You'll see a temp section that was made, and the master course is right there. So cloning objects is going to be great later if you need to add objects to a section view. You can just select whatever objects you need to add, hit the clone button. It'll make a clone with the exact same name, which is absolutely vital, and then it'll throw all of those into temp section so that you can then drag it into the area that you need. For example, we need to put this under course master objects. Okay. We are going to split the materials. Now we're going to select everything here. And choose back face column so I can see through the backs again like I'm supposed to. Alright, now next. These objects are split by materials, but there's still too many of them. So we're now going to create the 3D objects that we're going to use in our display lists. These objects need to be no more than, I'd say, 25 to 30 faces. The reason is that the vert cache for each one, if it's over, the vert cache for the microcode that Mario Kart uses is only 32 verts in size. So if you have a situation, and the way Overcart works is that it loads 32 verts at a time, filling the entire cache. I do not try to load 5 verts here, 7 verts there, and 8 verts here. It's too complicated. I don't get into that. So if you have a situation where you're trying to use vert 1, vert 57, and vert 84, I don't have any way to load all of those verts into the cache simultaneously. So all of your objects need to be arranged in a manner where the vert numbers are no more than 32 apart from the largest to the smallest. So again, limiting the number of faces, making sure that the objects are long or compact rather, and not circular where they fold back in on itself. You don't want to have any kind of, again, long strips where there might be a long strips are okay if they don't come back in on itself. That's going to be, again, the issue is where you try to go from vert 1 to vert 57. I have no way to load all of those at the same time. So when we're splitting these up, we really have to be careful to take that into account. And these are completely separate from the surface now, so you don't have to associate the two in any way. What we're going to do is just do 1 and some letters. Now, these faces are so large that I really don't want to do too many in an object, because the point of this is that I can choose when to render it and not render it. Again, this is such a small course that it's really not necessary, but if I was to do something like this, well, I can see that from here, I can see it from here, and that's almost the entire course. So that object is useless. I almost always have to render it. Instead, if I split that into 2 objects, well, I can't see that over here. I can only see it here. So now it's almost half the course, and that's, again, it doesn't matter for something this small, but when you have a much larger, more complex piece of geometry, you're really going to need to limit the number of faces that you're showing at any one time. So we're going to do that there. 1, some letters. So again, we're just splitting this up into smaller objects. What we can actually do is just 1. Seems like a lot, but it's not. Same over here, that's fine. And I have this ring, so I'll say these here. That's going to be a huge pain. I'm never going to notice that. These here. These here. And those there. Oh god, what have I been naming those? Okay, that's fine. You don't actually have to name them now, because we're going to name them right here. So select all the objects that we've just detached. You're going to put the material number 1, and you're going to hit name. No, you're going to hit auto part. Auto part. And what this is going to do is list them all as 1 part blank. It gives them a unique name starting with the number 1. Again, it associates it with a material, but it gives it a unique name that I can pull for display lists later. When I'm creating the display list and referencing the 3D object that we've created and written into bytecode, I need to be able to associate it, and using unique names is the easiest way to do so. So this object here should now be empty. There are 3 faces. Where are these faces? Why are these faces? Okay, what is this here? Oh, you gotta be kidding me. Alright, this face. I'm going to detach that, object 0001, and attach that. All our pretty little verts, and that's one's fixed. Now as for this one, we're going to just attach this to that, and now we're good. So now we have all 21 of our grass objects. We're just going to drag all of those back into course master objects, and then proceed on to material 2. And we have to do this for all of our materials. We have to split them up into smaller objects. For some of these, this one's already done. I have 4 faces, so we're just going to do 2 and auto part, 2 part 0's done. Material 3. So we do have to split this one up at least a little bit, but it's going to be relatively easy. So three. So if you only have a few too, you don't even necessarily need to use this. You can just name it 3 part 0, 3 part 1. But when you're doing like 20 objects, like I was for the first one, it's a pain to sit there 1 underscore part 0, 1 underscore part 1. And you don't even need to use part 0, part 1. You can use any unique name. I could name it 1 underscore blah, 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 and that would be perfectly fine, and there's no issue with that. But then later on, when there's an issue with part 1, blah, 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 I have to go and look at BLZXQ396 and try to find which sub-object that is. So it's a lot easier to have them named in a way that's logical and identifiable. So that's good. Object 3 should have no faces, which means we can delete it. We're okay. That wasn't the response I was expecting, but we're good. So here, clearly I'll need at least to split this off. So considering the we need to just 4 part 1, and that one's done. So again, we picked a real simple level where this is done. Wouldn't have to worry about too much complexity. $20 is fine. So 6 part 1. Number 7. 12 faces. That should be fine. Yeah. Absolutely fine. It can't not be. Number 8, huh? Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Okay, so I figure I'll do the same thing as with the grass. And nothing left in 8. Get rid of it. All of these. 8. Auto part done. Moving on. Next. Number 9. 9 has 4 faces. 9 is done. Moving on. Next, number 10. 26. And this we definitely will need to split. Nothing left here. Delete it. All of these. Put in 10. Auto part. Done. Next. 11. We're done. 11 is part 0. Next. 70. Yep, there we go. Alright. Just gotta move right along this time. Not even rename anything. Yeah, the whole thing. 11 left. Yep, that's the last one. Done. Alright, all of those are 12. 12 is done. Delete it. Drag these. 13. 13 is done. 14 is done. Right. Yeah, I'm always going to draw those at the same time. I'm probably always going to draw them. So 14 is done. 15. Definitely done. 16. 40 goddamn faces. Oh, the whole house. Alright, well. Go. Alright, so we're rounding it out here. 17 has 12. They're fine. And again, I could for this I could probably have 1,000 because there's never going to be a situation where there shouldn't be a situation where vert 1 is going past 32 verts in the cache. I mean, imagine with, you know, a whole bunch of quads that are not connected, that it would always just be 5, maybe 6 verts apart if it was a bad, you know, bad setup. But I could probably do 1,000 windows like that. So 17 is done. 17 is done. 18. Yeah, that's what we have to do. 19. Done. Yeah, it's 6 faces. Who cares? Just draw the damn doors. It sucks because they're on opposite ends, and I'm almost never gonna see these. I'm never gonna see this door, but it's fine. 20, only 8, so that's done. And finally 21, which is also 8, so that's done. So that's the gist of it. We have just split our objects or our course into objects, and we've split our course into sections. That is the the main part for sectioning out the map and creating the surface geometry. So I'm going to do another pause in the video here, recollect myself, and get into a part 3. Part 3 is going to be setting up the actual section views for north, east, south, and west, and deciding in which direction you're facing and what objects can be seen, and etc., etc. Again, there is a very cheap way to automate that, but we're going to do that first and then have to fine-tune out the extra objects that we're not going to be able to see. So we'll pick that up in part 3. That'll be just a few minutes. I just want to take a moment or so to recollect myself before we go back in. So thank you guys, and stay tuned.